Who are you expecting? A king?
I'm just a sweet transvestite from transsexual Transylvania.
Thank you. Thank you, thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Now, settle down, settle down. Just hold that for a moment here. Settle down. You, over there, you settle down, settle. Oh, I broke a nail. Now my whole meeting is ruined, ruined. Compose, breathe, breathe. Everyone, breathe. Feel life's little indignities just melting away. Well, not so much, but after 4 or 5 martinis they will. Now, is anyone smoking pot in here? How rude, at a banquet? Didn't your mother ever tell you to share? Now, I want to welcome you all to the Society for Studies of Social Stuff. The Social Science Studies Society, or a lot of S's, perhaps too many S's, perhaps too many. Now, first of all, I see some of you have had a drink, and that's a good thing because many of you must know that the society has a minimum that it must spend on food and beverage. So, drink up, pay up, and you can feel while you're doing something for yourself, you're doing something for the society. Feels good, doesn't it? All right, now second, and I've just only made this decision just now that we will have a costume contest. We should have a prize. After all, it's all about prizes, isn't it? We should have a prize for the second best costume. Okay. Now, it is my very great pleasure to welcome my very closest friend, Barbara Edge, the widow of David Edge, the grande dame of the society. Please, if you have hands, put them together and welcome. Barbara, thank you. Thank you, sir. Very well done. Now, settle down. Settle down. Now, this is everyone seated? Because this will astonish you. Now, I see all of the living will remember David Edge, but those of you who have been dead a very, very long time may not know that David Edge was one of the founders of the Social Society for Studies of something. He was also the founding editor of Social Studies of Science, the journal. He was a Banal Prize winner and a former president. Take notes, there will be a pop quiz. But this is the amazing thing. The greatest discovery of the century. Which century? Doesn't matter, but it is the greatest discovery of this. We have found in the archives. Are you paying attention? You're just wandering around. Now, listen up. in the archives of the Society, we have found a letter and an audio recording from David Edge. True that, dating from 1969, prior to the founding of the Society. And it is my great pleasure to open it tonight, and I'll read it for you now. You can see it's dirty, very dirty. I'll refrain from that next joke. To be opened October 30th, 2010. Bit of a problem. Well, it's a forward-looking society, is it not? And I say we press on, don't you? Let's just press on. To the future society, and future is crossed out. Future is crossed out. To the future Society for Social Studies of Science. I think he has the name wrong, but how could he have known? And let me just read it for you here. So many pages. So many S's. It appears to be a time capsule with an audio message. Dear Dr. Furter, I regret to inform you that your paper has been rejected. Sorry. That's just a little joke. It's just a little joke, don't bother. Seriously, it reads, this recording to be played by the editor of the journal Social Studies of Science and president of the Society on the occasion of the awarding of the first Edge Prize. But how could he have known that there would be an Edge Prize? And how could he have known that the president of the Society would be the editor of Social Studies of Science? He could not have known. Or could he? Well, this is so exciting. I'm just getting goosebumps all over just thinking about it. And I think now the best thing for me to do is to turn over the podium to tonight's Master of Ceremonies, the zombie banker, the president of the Society, and the editor of something. I don't know which society you may be. Can you touch one? Is it? No. Oh, well, perhaps just a little kiss. Lynch. That's his name, the editor, Lynch.
You look gorgeous, Franken. Okay. Before we hear the tape, I want to announce that out of admiration for David for inaugurating our movement, we have established a prize in his name.
To see in the movement, in some sense, something to admire or a pattern for future is also deviant, which means that you are a deviant.
I'm the deviant? Me? I suppose I should take this as a compliment.
What makes you the sort of person who can see this kind of thing in a situation when the majority are only seeing and evaluating in their own way?
I learned this from the Edinburgh School.
I don't want to prescribe the school in which you are to answer this one. Were you, in some sense, marginal or outside of the system when you were brought up?
I was brought up as an ethnomethodologist. We make it up as we go along.
What you appear to be saying, correct me if I'm wrong, is that there's no absolute stability.
Ethnomethodologists believe that social order does not require stability.
What worries me is that what you've said doesn't answer its own problems. Not only doesn't answer the world's problems, doesn't answer its own.
This is very strange. Were you there at my plenary talk?
This is not a basis for stability. This is not a basis for This is not a basis for stability. This is not a basis for stability. Stability.
Do we really need stability? Stability is a topic, not a resource.
Asking questions of this kind is very much like a vanishing mirrors trick. Every time we ask, we get an analysis back. You won't give a straight answer.
Okay, David, here's a straight answer. We are now giving the award in your name.
Well, I'm glad to hear you say that.
And quite fittingly, we are now going to award the Edge Prize, and it will be presented by Martina Mertz, who is the chair of the first Edge Prize committee.
Edge. Ik hoor steeds edge. Wat zou dat nou betekenen? Had ik nou beter opgelet in mijn Engels cursus? Edge. Laten we eens even opzoeken. Edge. Origin. Old English edge. Sharpened side of a blade. Of Germanic origin. Related to Dutch egge. And German ecke. Also to Old Norse egja. From an Indo-European root shared by Latin aties and Greek akis. Today, the noun has a number of meanings. Let me see whether some of them might fit. First, I quote, an intense, sharp, or striking quality. For example, a flamenco singer brings a primitive edge to the music. Second, a quality or factor that gives superiority over close rivals or competitors. For example, the veal had the edge on flavor. Okay, I could work from that. The Edge Prize. As you already heard, we established a new prize which will be awarded annually, and it's the first year we awarded, which is also why I didn't quite know what to do with this word edge. But as you've already heard also, is that this Edge Prize also refers to the memory of the late David Edge, and this is why we call the prize the Edge, the David Edge Prize. And you all know that he was a very important, both intellectually and organizationally, as well for the STS as the 4S community. He's had many important functions and roles in this community. And I want to refer just to one of them, which is the reason why this prize is called after him, which is that he was the co-founder and long-term editor of SSS, and he was that for 32 full years. Now, David has never been an ordinary editor. He was extremely enthusiastic, he had a very fine sense of humor, and he was extremely supportive to young and inexperienced authors, and I myself profited largely from that. So we might be saying that David was bringing an edge to editing. Speaking now on behalf of the prize committee, we were considering articles from 20 different journals. We were asking journal editors to nominate articles, and we also asked other people to nominate them. But we only got very few individual nominations, not from journal editors. So we would like you in future to just tell us about your favorite articles. Your articles in the sense that you wrote them, but even more we're interested in those articles which you would like to be using in class or for your own research, written by some of your colleagues. Coming now to the prize-winning article, because I don't want to do it too long. In a way, it sets off with the celebratory note of our plenary session today. STS is extremely successful. And it's so successful that one measure we might take for judging its success is that policymakers today have started to listen to us, at least in Europe. As a consequence, a large number of public dialogue and engagement exercises concerning science and technological development take place, and policymakers commit to issues of transparency and openness. Here, Alan Irwin steps in. He tells us, move away from normative debate over public engagement, disengage as an analytical move. Instead, turn to this new rhetoric of dialogue, transparency, and consultation as a topic of analysis. And this is exactly what he does in his fine paper, The Politics of Talk. Alan asks, how seriously should we take this talk about talk? Is there a relationship, and if so, which one, between rhetoric and institutional practice? When taking such a stance, a number of important features of the new scientific governance come to the fore, and I just want to mention three of the ones which are discussed, Alan is discussing in the article. The first one is that we're all aware of this concept of deficit, the old concept of deficit, which is referring to scientific literacy. And Alan is arguing that with these new policies, the old concept of deficit has been replaced, or rather accompanied, by a new concept of deficit, which is a deficit in public trust. The old deficit was addressed by policymakers by top-down communication. The new deficit is also addressed by something quite different, by greater openness, as a means to convince skeptical citizens to trust decision-making processes. Let me mention a second feature of this new scientific governance. This is that increased openness comes at a price, with the price of centralized control over risk management. And a third feature is that underlying is an assumption that engagement sort of automatically leads to consensus, and that it is important to involve only innocent citizens in it. The article engages with the topic of considerable political and epistemic interest for STS, as it questions some of our own assumptions. It is reflexive in the best sense of the term. It carefully deconstructs the underlying logic and workings of both the rhetoric and the practice of this new policy, discussing in more detail the case of GM consultation. There's a little bit of magic involved, because once you've read Alan's paper, you'll never think of public engagement in quite the same way as before. Well, as I told you, we have considered articles from many journals. The first winning paper actually was published by Social Studies of Science, and I'm sure David would have appreciated this. I welcome very much now Barbara Edge, and Alan, should he be around? Where's Alan? And Barbara's taking over now. Your turn.
I would just like to convey my thanks and our family and his colleagues in Edinburgh. Thanks to Forrest for instituting this prize. It's good to know the name will go on. Thank you.
I've just discovered that Mike Lynch has got a bigger head than I have, but I guess you knew that already. I was so happy when Martina contacted me about this prize. I just didn't know it was going to take place on a Michael Jackson film set. I want to do the traditional thing, which is offering thanks. I'd like to thank all of the undead at Brunel and at Liverpool who helped me. I'd like to thank the many armies of zombies who sat through various presentations which led up to the paper. And I'd especially like to thank the, well, we can call them ghouls or we can call them collaborating editors at Social Studies of Science. It amounts to pretty much the same thing, for their attempts to improve my paper as it went along. And I'd also like to thank two of my favorites, living vampires, that's Maya Horst and Kevin Jones, who are the two people I thank in the paper. But I'd also like to thank Malcolm Ashmore. I think Malcolm's around here somewhere, who had the job of trying to bring this half-dead creature to some sort of life. Elvis was more successfully brought to life than I could do it. The other thing I want to say is, of course, this is a matter of judgment, whether it is in any sense a halfway good paper. I could nominate many other better examples to receive this prize. But one thing I refuse to be beaten on is the pride I feel at getting an award with the name of David Edge upon it. David, for those of us who had the privilege of knowing him, would know that he was an incredibly rounded, intellectual person. I couldn't quite understand his fascination with baseball, but we could talk about football and lots of other interesting topics. David was just such a superb person to engage with. But the other thing I want to say, particularly to people who are perhaps new to 4S and don't know the name of David Edge, we're all people who've benefited from David, whether we know it or not, because I think we were incredibly lucky at the start of the development of STS to have someone of David's high level of scholarship, but also his commitment to engagement, because I think right from the start, it gave us a way in which STS could succeed as a movement. So I want to say thank you on behalf of everybody to David for his achievements. Thank you very much indeed.
Okay, we're going to interrupt the awards ceremony briefly while we thank Daniel Breslau and Barbara Allen for their amazing amount of work and excellent job of organizing the program and dealing with the arrangements. Are Daniel and Barbara, you're here. Is Daniel here? Would you like to? Yeah.
You want to say something? No, go ahead. Well, it was a lot of work, and people have asked me if we'd like to do it again, and it killed me this time. So, you know, you're going to have a lot of attrition in this society, I think, over the years with the, but we almost made it. I almost made it live, and thanks to Barbara, if there was only one of us, it would have been much harder. We also had a lot of help from the STS president, the 4S president, Mike Lynch, who I know a anarchist president is an oxymoron, but Mike Lynch was just, you know, gave us the most gentle, trusting guidance throughout the whole preparing the program. And Wes, of course, Dr. Frankenfurter is just, there is completely irreplaceable. There is no one who has the store of oral history of 4S meetings that he has, and there's no way anyone will ever do it. When he's gone, I fear for this society. Wenda Bouchspies, who set up the book display, also helped a lot with her wisdom from her prior role as program chair. And Rick Duque, who actually, I didn't believe this, but he told us that he did cook all of the food himself, prepared it, and the desserts. And I think he basically arranged the catering and did a lot of work and was amazing. We had some students that helped us. Virginia Tech students, David Brueggemann, David Tomlin, William Davis. Our chair, Skip Furman, who first proposed us hosting the 4S, being the host institution, as a campaign promise when he was running for chair of our department. And I was running against him, and I'm just delighted that he won, and we had the meeting. Also, the staff at the Hyatt was great. Tasha, McDougall, the rest of the staff. Do you have anything to say?
No, and I thank everybody that's turned out here tonight and everyone that's come to the meeting, because it's really all of you and for us. I'm proud to be a member of this society, and all of you showing up tonight and to the meeting, presenting your scholarship, your work, participating in the workshops, and all the other things everyone's done to make it this meeting. We thank you all.
I would like to say that I came here expecting to be spending the entire meeting troubleshooting, putting out fires, dealing with one crisis after another, and it was nothing like that. This is just naturally such a self-organizing group that we set up the program and you all deal with problems, take care of things as they come up, except for I wanted to say a little bit about this one group, though, that's kind of undermining everything we're trying to accomplish. And you know who you are, of course. I mean the group of people who need to flit from one session to another in the middle while they're in progress. So we'll work on your attention span, but no, we love you too, and this is really a pleasure setting up this program so you all could take over and make it run. Thanks.
Thank you.
We will be giving them a token of our appreciation, only a token, because we can't give them enough of a certificate for some books, but we really, really appreciate the job they did. I'd like to thank the outgoing members of the Forest Council, Gabrielle Hecht, Michelle Murphy, and Stefan Timmermans, for reading dozens of books for Book Prize, Fleck and Carson prizes. I'd also add special thanks for Martina Mertz, Maureen McNeil, and Paul Wouters, who stayed on for an extra year doing the Edge Prize. And also helping to organize how the prize would go. I'd also like to thank the amazing job done by the zombie organizers of this venue today. Okay, we're now going to go to the Nicholas Mullins Award for Best Student Paper, and that's going to be presented by Catherine Waldby. Is she here? Catherine Waldby? Oh, there you go. Yeah.
Yes, okay. I've been looking forward to seeing Wes's heels for days, so I finally can see them. I apologise for my complete lack of zombie accessories. I can just assure you I feel like a zombie, so I may not look like one. Okay, is that okay? Yep, okay. So the Mullins Award is for the best grad paper. And we received 23 in the round that we judged. The papers were fantastically good. We were really incredibly blown away. We had a terrible, terrible time deciding on the winner. It took hours and hours and hours of discussion. But we concluded that Manjari Mahajan's paper, Governing Through the Non-Governmental, Shifting Terrains of Public Health in Indian AIDS Epidemic, was the outstanding candidate. Mahajan explores the way in which the Indian government, in a significant departure from its past public health practices, has relied heavily on non-governmental organisations to provide AIDS-related health care. With significant, she argues a new mode of what she terms contractual accountability is developing, with significant consequences for the delivery of care. She analyses the political and epistemological implications of India's approach to AIDS and shows the way in which NGOs in India have become crucial players in knowledge production and expertise about AIDS, sexuality, culture and morality. So if Manjari is here, can she please come to the podium? Congratulations. Would you like to speak?
So this paper was written while I was doing my PhD at the Cornell STS department. And I would like to thank my committee members, which included Steve Hilgartner, Mike Lynch, and Matthew Evangelista. But I would also like to thank all my friends, mentors, and other professors in the department who made 6 years of my PhD experience so enjoyable. Thank you.
Okay, our next prize is the Rachel Carson Prize. It's a book prize, and it'll be presented by Stefan Timmermans.
Ladies and gentlemen, 'twas the night before Halloween. Not even Uncle Mouse stirred a bean. So you know already this is going to be exquisite poetry if you can make a link between Halloween and bean. And by the way, Uncle Mouse is now actually represented in the American Museum of American History here, just a stuffed mouse in the genetics exhibit. So let me start over. 'Twas the night before Halloween. Not even Uncle Mouse stirred a bean. All over Washington, D.C., kids wondered what they should be, how they should dress to get the biggest heap of candy mess. Should they go as vampires, ghouls, or ghosts, or maybe as evil Fox talk show hosts? Even the Europeans in our midst will note with little shame that those costumes are not scary, but rather tame. The Rachel Carson Committee, in all its wisdom, selected a book from the true monster kingdom. So who is the boogeyman of 4S? No, I don't mean the alter ego of Wes. It's something big and scary we study, not our gender-bending buddy. Our girl has really great karma. The scary one is Big Pharma. In cauldrons all over the globe, they stir the potions of false hope, which they push to doctors and consumers to shape disease and shrink tumors. It's like selling condoms at a prom. In fact, condoms they do sell, but they don't do very well. So they also make a little blue pill to enhance the sexual thrill. It makes the dicks go up until bulging veins pop. Then they prescribe more medication to take the edge of the frustration and make the blood thinner. So this year we have a winner. But wait, I cannot reveal it yet. Something more needs to be said. The committee had 2 other readers, in their field, well-respected leaders. One is called Murphy Michel, the other one Hecht Gabriel. I thank them. Yeah, what are the chances that their names would rhyme, huh? I thank them for reading about 100 books, separating good scientists from the crooks. So before I used blood thinner to get to winner, maybe now I should use sinner, or better yet, overcooked banquet dinner. Uh-oh. Now Wes is looking at his watch. There's going to be flack to catch. No more bush to beat around. Let's get straight to the point. Ladies and gentlemen, 'twas the night before Halloween. The winner is Jeremy Green. with a book that will disturb many slumbers. It's called Prescribing by Numbers.
There you go.
Thank you, Stefan. I can't follow that possibly. Well, you are an odd lot, all of you. And I thank you for welcoming me in your disorderly ranks. I gave my first grad student paper at 4S a number of years ago, and so I feel that this award is actually quite meaningful to me. I'm almost getting a little sentimental. So let me just thank a few people. My dissertation committee, clearly, Alan Brandt, Charles Rosenberg, and Arthur Kleinman. Jackie Waymiller at Hopkins. Really, I just want to point this out. As soon as I gave her the manuscript, I then became a medical resident and essentially disappeared for a few years. So the ability of Hopkins to help this book to come into existence is amazing. There are too many people to thank. Abano Seo Asari, Nate Greenslit, Joe Dumet. There's just a number of people who helped me conceptualize why we think of drugs the way we do and why it's so important to do so. So thank you very much. And, again, you're a freaky-looking group. I'll endeavor to be a little freakier next time. Thanks again.
Okay, we really kept Martina Mertz busy because she'll be presenting the next book prize, the Ludwig Fleck Prize.
Now, Judy told us today that sociology is very keen on STS these days. They put a STS person as a department chair. They snatch concepts, although, as Karen told us, there is no central concept in STS. And now they even snatch our prize winners. Now, we can prove that we were deciding over dinner at last year's 4S meeting who would be the Fleck Prize winner even before ASA was thinking of theirs. The Fleck Prize of this year for the best book in the area of STS will go to Steve Epstein and his fine book, Inclusion, The Politics of Difference in Medical Research. The book starts out from the new attention for health inequalities with respect to sex and gender, race and ethnicity and age. And it observes that since the mid-1980s, there has been a paradigm shift in the US. The paradigm shift is about moving from what was earlier done, considering white, middle-aged men, the standard human. There was massive criticism with this paradigm to extrapolate to the entire population by considering these white, middle-aged men. And that has given rise to a new paradigm, which Steve calls the inclusion and difference paradigm. Now, there is a need to engage with this shift critically, as there are very ambivalent kind of effects going with it. On the one hand, it seems to be an important strategy to improve medical research and make it more inclusive. On the other hand, viewing differences merely as biologically defined might ignore other health risks along other patterns of differentiation. Steve is dealing with this question in a remarkable way because he, on the one hand, takes the necessary distance to be analyzing this, but on the other hand, he does that in a very engaged and a very explicit way. As an author, he's always in the text with all the doubts you may have. And as a reader, you appreciate this particularly because when you read along the pages, you have these strange kind of feelings that something is very awkward going on. And Steve is very, very good in pointing this out and writing himself into the story with his own impressions and judgment of what's happening here at the same time. The task, thus, which the book sets itself is to understand in what respect this new paradigm, which comes with a new policy, leads to better health, but also might lead to adverse health effects. I would like to go very briefly through the structure of the book. The first part of the book is discussing how the new paradigm is made. It shows how the strategy gained supporters, became institutionalized, and taken for granted. It shows how reformers framed their arguments, but also which controversies developed and how they were settled. The second part of the book, then, is dealing with the social and medical consequences, and it is doing this by looking as well at the intended and the unintended consequences. The chapters throughout the book then look at different agents and different arenas in turn, starting with government agencies, moving to medical research practice, then to pharmaceutical companies, thinking of what might be the implication for recruiting people as research subjects, and that's one of my favorite chapters, to show us how the new applied science emerges, the recruitmentology, which goes together with needing to recruit people and keep them in the trials. Steve then finally talks about the different groups, especially focusing on women and racial profiling. The decision of our committee was unanimous, and it was not so difficult to come up with Steve as a very clear winner. This is a very fine book for many reasons. One of them is the way Steve traces all of these arenas in a very comprehensive manner through sites, locations, actors, and analyzing their interaction. In fact, each chapter constitutes a study of its own, with its own body of literature, its own body of empirical data, all interwoven to form a complex whole. Conceptually, the book is very inspiring and elaborate, not only drawing on STS, but also on political sociology, critical studies of gender and race. I can't do justice to the book now in these few minutes with most people chatting in the back. So, therefore, I would like to invite you to come to us tomorrow at 1:45 to the Author Meets Critic session, where we will have 2 full hours to be discussing this work. It's a great pleasure to ask Steve to come here. Where is he? Congratulations.
Thank you so much. Oh, that was really sweet. Thank you. This is a great thrill. Thank you so much, Martina. That was so kind and generous. And I know from having served on the prize committees before how much work is involved in reading those books. It's also a great thrill for me to share the stage with Dr. Frankenfurter, who in the Tim Curry incarnation was a hero of my youth. I'll be very brief. There's much I could say. I do want to say how meaningful it is to me to receive this award from a society that has been a home to me ever since 1990, when I was a graduate student and Adele Clark encouraged me to come to my very first 4S meeting. And there is just no way that I could have written this particular book without relying on all of the work of so many people and all of the conversations that I had in the halls and at 4S meetings over the years. I feel that it was shaped in so many ways by so many people that I wish I had the time to point out. I do want to single out the 4 individuals who became revealed to me as university press reviewers and gave me very substantial comments on the entire manuscript. All of them people who've been wonderfully supportive of me over the years. Tom Gearin, Kelly Moore, Raina Rapp, and Stefan Timmermans. A big thank you to the 4 of you. Finally, I want to thank all of the faculty and students at my former institutional home, University of California, San Diego, where I wrote this book. And thanks to all of you. Okay, our final and most major prize is the J.D. Burnell Prize. It's a career award for distinguished work in our field, and it will be presented by Tom Gearin.
Now, just one moment here, because we're getting a bit of noise in the back, and I must ask you to desist. And from now on, I'll be walking around and watching very closely. So.
Miss, 1754, later. I'm dressed as a vice provost, so those of you without tenure, shut up. My comments will be extremely brief because our winner this year has been known on occasion in public lectures to speak beyond the allotted time, just a little bit, or sometimes a whole lot. And though we are all so proud of her, none of us wants to be here listening to her gracious acceptance speech at midnight or 1:30, so I, for one, will be short. The John Desmond Burnell Award is given annually by 4S to an individual judge to have made distinguished contributions to the field of science and technology studies. It's widely known as our society's Lifetime Achievement Award, with no implication whatsoever that our winner has completed her work or has nothing left to say. The prize is co-sponsored by Thomson Scientific, and we're grateful to Gene Garfield, founder of the Citation Index, for his continuing generosity and support. The Burnell Award has been given since 1981 to 28 STS scholars who have shaped the direction and pace of our field. The first 5 winners were Derek Price, Robert Merton, Thomas Kuhn, Joseph Needham, and Joseph Ben-David. The most recent 5 were Steve Wolgar, Ruth Schwartz, Cowan, Viva Baker, Donald McKenzie, and Sheila Jasanoff. And that's a hell of a lot of academic intellectual territory. The 2009 winner of the John Desmond Burnell Prize fits comfortably among these distinguished scholars who've built our field. Karen Nor Satina of the University of Chicago and Constance. I first met Karen in 1976, before most of you were born, at the very first annual meeting of the Society at Cornell, where she arrived from Vienna with a paper entitled Policymakers' Use of Social Science Knowledge, Symbolic or Instrumental, a topic that may surprise you if you know anything at all about her subsequent writings. And you might even be more surprised to hear the titles of papers Karen published in the next several years. Scientific Productivity and Accumulative Advantage, a Thesis Reassessed, and Publication Productivity and Professional Position, Cross-National Evidence on the Role of Organizations, an aspiring positivist. But we really shouldn't be surprised at all, because Karen has always been a restless scholar, never content to stay put, always looking for something new to say, something unexplored, something different to add to our knowledge of science and society, with or without $10 million for 10 years. Positivism quickly forgotten. She published a paper in 1979 called Tinkering Towards Success, Prelude to a Theory of Scientific Practice, which was indeed a prelude only to about 2 decades of constructivist interpretations, SSK, lab ethnographies, and cultural studies, the stuff that became the foundation of our field. Her first book, The Manufacture of Knowledge, an essay on the constructivist and contextual nature of science, ostensibly an ethnographic examination of potato protein researchers as seen through the lens of some heavy continental epistemology. It's so difficult now to imagine a time when science was not seen as constructed or contextual, unless, of course, you're Park Doing. That book introduced concepts we still rely on today: the decision-ladenness of fact fabrication, the scientist as cognitive and practical reasoner, local idiosyncrasies, occasioned selections and the oscillations of decisions, interactively accomplished character of scientific work, trans-scientific fields. And of course, there were things written in that book that just did not stick, like the difference between sensitive and frigid methodologies. I'm not sure what happened to that one. And once Karen Norris-Cetina saved my life. It was the 1988 annual meeting at Amsterdam. I was scheduled to be part of a panel to discuss Bruno Latour's new book, Science in Action. Olga Amsterdamska was on that panel, you might remember. Anyway, I had arrived from the States the day before, fully jet-lagged, no sleep. They lost my baggage. I was wearing the same old clothes, didn't get anything to eat because I was trying to find my bags. And then the session started. I felt like shit and believed in my heart that I was either going to faint or vomit on the spot, or maybe both. As Olga spoke, my turn was next. I got up and left the room, which was packed and excruciatingly hot. Just outside in the hall was Karen, talking with Daryl Chubin. She took one look at me and realized that something must be done. I was probably green or blue or some other color like you people look like tonight. She sat me down, sent Daryl for some smelling salts, which he actually managed to find. She held them under my nose, made me breathe, and then, I kid you not, she slapped me on both cheeks in a firm Viennese way and said, "The show must go on." Her 1999 Epistemic Cultures copped both the Fleck Prize for the best book from 4S and the Merton Book Prize from SCAT of the American Sociological Association. Epistemic Cultures is widely appreciated as the book that finally and empirically did in those myths about the unity of science by adopting an extraordinarily time-intensive comparative case study approach. Karen was able to convincingly show that the processes of fact-making in particle physics and molecular biology take different paths. Her signal contribution that laboratories reconfigure social and natural orders, giving every advantage to the scientific investigator, all but banishing wild nature from experimental science, has been profoundly important for my own sociological interest in the places and spaces where science gets done. Epistemic Cultures ends with a chapter titled Towards an Understanding of Knowledge Societies, a dialogue which presaged the next phase in Karen's restless, productive, continuously agenda-setting career. No longer content to watch facts get made at the laboratory bench, and recognizing that there was much to be learned about how and why science and technology stood at the epicenter of so many changes in other social institutions and processes. Starting with the dawn of the new millennium, Karen began to look at markets, economic transaction, currency trading, not abandoning the insights gained from her study of science, but pushing these insights onto new ground, and in doing so, inserting science studies into the orbits of other scholarly constellations, such as the vibrant field of economic sociology. Her 2004 book with Alex Preda, The Sociology of Financial Markets, follows a familiar but fertile path with exciting results. In the same way that her earlier work all but obliterated the idea that scientific practice followed the logical procedural rules of some scientific method, the newer work challenges the idea that markets and trading follow rules of rational efficiency. It is, after all, a sociological approach. With this work, Karen secures her most recent reputation as an ambassador of science studies, taking our news to other epistemic communities and being appreciated for that. She was elected president, for example, of the theory section of the American Sociological Association. I promised to be brief, but I failed. simply because the career of Karen Norr-Cetina cannot be captured in 5 minutes or even an hour. Her accomplishments and contributions to our field across 4 decades have made Karen a most worthy recipient of the 4S Bernal Award. And though I've rambled on for too long, I have left some time for Karen herself to respond, but not too much time. You don't have enough hands.
No, I don't have enough hands.
Here, put that there. Okay, are you all set? This is on her clock, not mine.
Well, thank you so much, Tom Guerin and the Bernal Committee. I want to also thank the Society for Social Studies of Science and the membership in the Thomson Reuters Association, to which I discover I now have a relationship. I know them from the study of financial markets. Now, Tom reminded me of a number of things I do not want to be reminded of, and I had pushed into the background. It was interesting to hear what sorts of things I published before I became a member of the 4S Society. Previous recipients of the prize include so many of my most admired idols and friends, and my most feared competition, of course. Harry Collins, Steve Woolger, David Blower, Barry Barnes, Donald Mackenzie, Tom Guerin, Michael Lynch. I can't really enumerate everyone here. I will forget too many, and it would indeed take me to 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. You know that I occasionally stray to other association meetings, for example, the American Sociological Association. Nonetheless, it is this society, which is my original and my primary home. I lead, as some of you know, really a nomadic life, shuttling back and forth between Chicago and Constance, traveling between countries and cultures and to some degree disciplines. I quite enjoy it, actually. But I enjoy even more that this sort of distributed life has a center, and the center is the Society for Social Studies of Science. I have to cut this in half in order to give you space to continue your own discussion. All I wanted to say is that I was indeed there in 1976 at the first Society for Social Studies of Science meeting when this society was born. I am a founding member and proud of it. And at the time, I was only a visitor to this country, an import from Vienna. I followed the trail to the US that the previous generation, Lazarsfeld, Morgenstern, von Neumann, and others had established. In fact, it was Lazarsfeld who told me to go to the United States at some point in time, and which the American Ford Foundation financed. When I came to escape from the funny imaginary life of my Austrian home country and its very intense but also very constraining society, and trying to escape from the politicized intellectual elite in my surrounding. They were spectacular interlocutors, but despite of their impressive cleverness, never quite able to do impressive research. And I was looking for that sort of research.